Amusement parks offer exhilarating experiences that you can't find anywhere else. But in the quest for building the ultimate rides, parks have, on occasion, pushed the boundaries way too far. From insane upside-down water slides to dangerous roller coasters, here are 15 banned rides and attractions. Number 15. The Cannonball Loop, Action Park, New Jersey. The notorious Action Park opened in 1978 in Vernon Township, New Jersey, as a way for the landowners to make use of their ski resort during the summer. Built at a time when safety laws weren't exactly as stringent as they are today, it became known for a series of attractions where guests would virtually take their lives into their own hands the moment they entered. The famous and most reckless of them all, however, was a water slide that was added in 1983 and was celebrated for the fact that it was the only one in the world that featured a full 360-degree loop. Of course, the physics behind this working properly is complex and meant that not every body size and shape would successfully pass through the inversion. Even the owners knew it was dangerous, with test dummies supposedly emerging with missing limbs and even decapitations. And they originally paid employees $100 to try it themselves while wearing full hockey protective gear. A hatch was added to remove anyone who got stuck, and despite the risks, it was finally opened to guests in 1985. This was short-lived, however, because amongst reports of bloody noses, injured backs, and an investigation that found riders could be subjected to as much as 9 Gs of force while going around the loop, the state's Advisory Board of Carnival Amusement Ride Safety ordered it to be closed within just a month. Something they rarely ever did, and is a testament to just how dangerous the Cannonball Loop truly was. It did open periodically over the next decade, but continual injuries meant that it was finally shut down for good and was dismantled when the park itself shut its doors for the last time. Number 14. Son of Beast, Kings Island, Ohio. When it opened in April of 2000 at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, Son of Beast became the world's tallest and fastest wooden roller coaster. Reaching a maximum height of 218 feet or 66 meters, it was also the first ever wooden hypercoaster, and also the only one to feature a full vertical loop inversion. With trains traveling at speeds of up to 78 miles per hour, it soon became one of the park's top attractions, but it soon transpired that designers had pushed the limits a little bit too far. There's a reason why roller coasters of this size are usually built from steel, and that's because the material is far more capable of withstanding the forces that it's subjected to. The owners of Kings Island and their guests learned this the hard way with 2 serious incidents that led to its closure. The first, that happened in 2006, saw a crack form in one of the wooden track beams, which also caused an unplanned dip. And when the train passed over it, riders were jolted so severely that they suffered from head and neck injuries. A similar thing happened 3 years later with someone suffering a serious head injury too, and the ride was closed, never to reopen. Eventually, it was replaced by a brand new steel coaster, and ever since then, the rules on how fast and tall wooden coasters can be built have been strictly limited. Number 13. Human Trebuchet, Middlemore Water Park, England. Trebuchets were once the most feared siege weapons of all time, able to launch huge loads that were often set alight against defensive walls of cities. But in their quest to offer the most exhilarating and unusual rides in the world, a water park in England actually decided to build one to hurl humans 70 feet into the air. Known as the Human Trebuchet, it was built at Middlemore Water Park in the late 1990s, and for a cost of £40, which was the equivalent to around $66, riders would then be thrown skyward and land into a large net that was around the same size as a tennis court. At least that's how it was supposed to work, but because of the different weight and size of people, the contraption was, on occasions, either too powerful or too weak. Inevitably, this led to a series of accidents, the first which took place in 1999 and saw a 44-year-old woman break her pelvis, and the second and far more serious, which took place in 2002 and actually killed a university student who missed the landing net altogether. Unsurprisingly, once this happened, the ride was quickly torn down, and any attempt to create something similar is now expressly banned in the country's safety regulations. Number 12. Mind Scrambler, Playland, New York. Located in Rye, New York, the Playland amusement park first opened in 1928 and has gone on to entertain many millions of guests since then. The range of coasters and rides have been perfectly safe, but failures in safety procedures have unfortunately led to several deaths over the years. The ride that caused the most problems was the Mind Scrambler, which was very similar to others that you'll find at parks all around the world. With riders seated, secured within the ride cars, the entire frame begins to rotate, and all of the cars are spun around at fast speeds. The one at Playland, though, has for some reason been the cause of 2 fatalities. The first in 2004 when a 7-year-old girl was thrown from the ride, and the second in 2007 when a worker suffered the same fate. The specific way the one at Playland was built has been, and everyone like it has to be upgraded to include tougher restraints and more rigid safety procedures. I'm sure nothing like it can ever happen again. Number 11. Thunder River Rapids, Dream World, Australia. River rapid rides are a common feature of amusement parks worldwide, but to make them work properly and guide the seemingly free-floating rafts around the full route, there's a surprising amount of machinery that's hidden beneath the scenes. The rapids have to be carefully designed so everything goes to plan, and when things go wrong, it can be catastrophic. The Thunder River Rapids was one of the most popular attractions at the Dream World amusement park on the Gold Coast of Queensland in Australia, and first opened in 1986. Reaching a top speed of 28 miles per hour, a full circuit of the ride would last around 4 minutes, with riders sitting in 6-person rafts. Tragically, in October of 2016, 30 years after the ride first opened, one of the water pumps near the ride started failing, and this caused the water levels to drop and 2 of the rafts to collide with one another. Several people were thrown into the water and crushed against the mechanism, which resulted in 4 fatalities. An investigation found this to be an awful accident that wasn't anyone's fault, but questions were raised about the overall design, and not only was the Thunder River Rapids closed for good and dismantled, but additional precautions were ordered for other similar rides around the country. Number 10. Fujin Raijin 2, Expo Land, Japan. Japan's Expo Land opened in 1970 for the International Exposition that took place in Osaka that year and would go on to become one of the country's most popular amusement parks for more than 30 years. With over 40 rides and attractions, which included 8 roller coasters, there was something there for everyone. But managerial oversights meant that rides that were originally safe were falling into a dangerous state of disrepair. One of the most popular rides was the Fujin Raijin 2 roller coaster, which was a stand-up coaster created by legendary Japanese attraction designers Togo. In May of 2007, however, one of the trains derailed, which killed 1 person and injured at least 19 others, and the entirely preventable accident was found to be the result of a broken axle. Investigators found that the axles on the ride hadn't been replaced for at least 15 years, and similar issues were found on other axles on other trains on that coaster, and others in the park. Fujin Raijin 2 was closed for good, and the incident ultimately led to the entire park closing too, and a full audit was ordered for every coaster in Japan to ensure risks like this weren't being taken elsewhere. There are now strict laws to ban operation of rides that haven't been routinely checked and repaired, with the hope that this should prevent an accident like this from ever happening again. Number 9. Sand Blaster, Daytona Beach, Florida. It's not uncommon for coasters to be dismantled and rebuilt at different locations during their lifetimes, and you'd hope that every single time this happens, there's a full audit to ensure it's as safe as possible. This isn't always the case though, and the story of the Sand Blaster shows how important regular checks are. It was first installed at Adventureland in Illinois in 1970, where it was known as Super Italian Bob's, and would go on to be used at another 4 parks before reaching Boardwalk Amusements in Daytona Beach, Florida, under its new name. There had been problems with its refurbishment in the first place that led to delays in its opening, but finally, to great fanfare, the first paying guests were able to ride it in 2013, after an opening by the state's governor. In 2017, however, authorities forced the coaster to close after an inspection found damaged braces and cracked supports, and after significant upgrades, it was allowed to open once more. Following year, though, there was a serious accident where one of the cars completely derailed, and the ride was shut for good as a result. Number 8. Vertigo, Cedar Point, Ohio. Slingshot rides, which see guests sat in a ride vehicle that's launched into the sky on bungee cords, are commonly seen at amusement parks and fairs around the world. But in an attempt to offer experiences far beyond what you can find elsewhere, Cedar Point in Ohio opened an enormous one in 2002. Made up of three 256-foot-tall towers in a triangular formation with cables leading to the ride vehicle in the center, the ride would launch guests at speeds of up to 50 miles per hour to a height of 300 feet. Because of its size, the three support towers were designed so that they could sway as much as 8 feet in high winds or when the ride was operational, and the designers believed that this would be enough tolerance. In the end, though, it was found that the structure was far more vulnerable than had been accounted for, and it was only sheer luck that meant that no one got hurt. Less than 5 months after being built, during the winter when the park was closed, one of the towers snapped and collapsed. An investigation found that this had happened because of a phenomenon that occurs when wind blows over the top of a cylindrical structure. And while suggestions were offered of a way to make it more sturdy, it became illegal to operate one with exactly the same design. Number 7. Space Journey, Eco-Adventure Valley, China. There's such a mystique and interest in the idea of space travel that's currently far beyond the realm of possibility for the vast majority of us. So it's no surprise that amusement parks around the world have designed rides intended to replicate the experience. The one at Epcot, for example, has become known for being so intense that riders have often felt extremely sick afterwards. But there's another that pushed the limits of human endurance even further. Space Journey, which opened at Eco-Adventure Valley in Shenzhen, China, was a motion simulator made up of 11 carriages, with 4 people sitting in each, that spin around a centrifuge. Based on rides seen elsewhere, but designed to be even more intense, it was one of the most popular at the park, but in 2010 there was a fatal accident. Apparently, due to a loss of power, one of the carriages broke loose and struck the others, which caused the whole structure to collapse and kill 6 people. In the aftermath, very few details were released as to what exactly happened, and the full report has still not been made public, meaning the full story has never been known. The ride was closed, though, and anything similar is explicitly banned across the country. Number 6. Verrückt, Schlitterbahn Water Park, Kansas City. Whether it be twists and turns or sheer height and speed, water parks design a wide range of different slides to offer a variety of different experiences. And in 2014, the Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City proudly announced the opening of Verrückt, which instantly became the tallest water slide in the world with a maximum height of 168 feet and 7 inches. Built at a cost of $3.6 million, riders would sit in boats that would drop at an angle of 60 degrees and reach a speed of 70 miles per hour. But with such a focus on thrills, safety was compromised. It opened later than originally planned after test boats were found to be traveling too fast down the slide and launching themselves into the air, which led to several adaptations being needed to slow them down. Still, this only worked to an extent, and in 2016 a 10-year-old boy was launched into the air and decapitated, and the ride was closed for good. After this event, a number of other accidents were discovered whereby people had been seriously injured. This meant that the state officials refused to allow the slide to open again. The legal case that followed caused such reputational damage to the water park that it too closed a few years later, and the state legislature was changed to increase safety checks and tests so issues are found far quicker in the future. Number 5. Ghost Train, Luna Park, Sydney, Australia. Ghost trains are usually seen as lighthearted fun at amusement parks, and despite surrounding you with ghouls and specters, you won't ever think you were actually in any danger. The ghost train at Luna Park in Sydney, Australia, though, began to live up to its name in 1979, when a series of safety issues combined in a way that resulted in one of the worst amusement park incidents in the country's history. Thought to be caused by electrical faults, but also with suggestions of purposeful actions by former employees, the ghost train set alight and killed 6 children and 1 adult. The structure, which had been built 40 years earlier, was made almost entirely from flammable materials, and poor evacuation procedures meant that even once the fire was noticed, staff weren't able to extinguish it or evacuate those inside. It was in the aftermath of this incident that a number of similar attractions around Australia were banned because they would also have gone up in flames if there was a spark. And now, as a memory of what happened, there's a memorial park and plaque where the ride once stood. Number 4. Perilous Plunge, Knott's Berry Farm, California. Perilous Plunge, when it opened at Knott's Berry Farm in the year 2000, was the world's tallest water ride, seeing a raft full of 24 passengers being towed up to a height of 121 feet, before making a U-turn along a small river before plummeting down a 115-foot drop into a 650,000-gallon splashdown lagoon. It's an experience that you'll find at other amusement parks, although to a much more intense level, and this particular one faced challenges as soon as it opened. The problems were in the design of the actual rafts, and just after a year of operation, a guest fell out of one during the descent and was killed. This led to a series of redesigns with over-the-shoulder restraints, but the different shape of these rafts then caused stress fractures in the lift chains. These chains were then replaced, but issues continued to develop, which means the park was finally forced to close the Perilous Plunge for good in 2012, and have subsequently replaced it with 3 alternative attractions. Number 3. Catapult, Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park, Wisconsin. Located in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, the Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park is a resort fashioned after ancient Greece, with attractions based on the legendary gods and mythical creatures. With indoor and outdoor rides and a water park, there's plenty to do, from go-karts and roller coasters to water slides and carousels. But there's one ride you won't be able to go on, a reverse bungee experience that was called the Catapult. It's a type of ride you'll have seen before, where a ride capsule is attached to 2 bungee cords that launch it into the air. But in July of 2015, as 2 guests were about to be sent skywards, one of the cords snapped. Video of this happening was soon shared online before being deleted, and by that time the reputational damage had been done. Rather than fixing it, the park management decided instead to ban any attractions like it on their grounds, and the Catapult was removed 2 days later. Fortunately, the 2 people who were strapped in at the time emerged unharmed, but things could have been very different if the cord had broken while it was being stretched in the other direction. Safety inspections found it was simply because the cord hadn't been replaced as often as it should have been, so while this reverse bungee was unsafe, it doesn't mean that there are fears about any others. Number 2. Dodonpa, Fuji-Q, Highland Park, Japan. First opened in December of 2001, Dodonpa at the Fuji-Q Highland Park in Japan became the fastest roller coaster on the planet. The steel launch coaster used a compressed air system to propel the trains forward, and riders would reach an astonishing speed of 106 miles per hour in just 1.8 seconds. The 4,081-foot ride lasted just 55 seconds because of the continual speed, and it held the speed and acceleration records for a year and a half before Top Thrill Dragster opened at Cedar Point in Ohio in 2003. Dodonpa remained extremely popular though, and in 2017 it underwent a renovation program that saw the track length extended and an upgrade to the launch system that increased the speed and acceleration to 112 miles per hour in just 1.6 seconds. Riders would undergo a greater G-force than astronauts, and because of alterations in the track's design, it became the only launch coaster and by far the fastest of any kind in the world with an inversion. It seems the engineers pushed that technology too far though, and while there weren't any problems with the stability of the ride itself, they overlooked an important weakness that was impossible to overcome: the bodies of the riders themselves. After its reopening, there were a number of complaints about people's bones being broken during the acceleration element of the ride, and countless injuries throughout the rest of the course as riders were subjected to far greater forces they had ever experienced. Dodonpa was therefore closed indefinitely in early 2021, and it's likely that if it does ever open again, there's little chance it'll be allowed to go as fast as it's capable of. Number 1. Dragon Challenge, Universal Studios Island of Adventure, Florida. While roller coasters on their own are exhilarating, designers realized that by adding a second track to a ride, they could up the excitement by 2 trains seemingly racing against one another. It's something that you'll see at a number of parks, and in May of 1999, Universal Studios Island of Adventure opened a new one called the Dragon Challenge. With a theme based on Harry Potter, where one train was a Chinese fireball dragon and the other a Hungarian horntail, and each track had 5 inversions and lasted for 2 minutes and 25 seconds. In 2011, however, the dueling aspect of the coaster was banned for the rest of its operational life after it became clear that the 2 trains were traveling too close to each other. In July of that year, an object flew from a rider on one train and struck the rider on the other train and blinded him. While in August, a similar thing happened, but on this occasion injured the victim's face and leg. From then on, each train was able to operate independently of one another, but that was the end of the racing element.
Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.